Hello and good evening and welcome back. Now tonight we're going to be talking about OCD, or rather this book called Break Free from OCD, written by Dr. Fiona Shalacombe, Dr. Victoria Bream Oldfield, and Professor Paul Salkowskis. Apologies if I butchered those names, which I probably have. Now, this is another book which I've had for many years but never actually bothered to read. It's me and the next. Now, I may have brought this one from Waterstones. Seems most likely, but I can't remember. If I'm honest with you, I just can't remember. Anyway, I'll read you the back so you know roughly what we're getting into. Are you worried by obsessive thoughts, rituals, or routines? Would you like to regain control over your behaviour and cast your fears aside? I think I would. Whether you are compelled to clean more and more thoroughly, are plagued by bad thoughts, or feel the need to keep checking you've turned off appliances, obsessive worries can become a drain on daily life. However, you don't need to suffer anymore. This practical guide written by three leading cognitive behavioural therapy, yes, you see the link here, experts enables you to make sense of your symptoms, and gives a clear plan to help you conquer OCD. Includes a detailed information on the main types of OCD, including rumination OCD. Clear step-by-step information on treating your individual problem using CBT. True-to-life case studies and examples. Advice and support for friends and families of sufferers. How to keep OCD out of your life, now and in the future. Whether your condition is mild or severe, this definitive resource will help you reclaim your life. Now, I don't know if you can see at the back here. Not a very good print job here, but you can just about see. $16.99 or £17. That is not cheap. Obviously, I had great plans when I bought this, but like most things, I never actually got into doing it. Now, here's the book. Here's my emotional support dog. We're not going to be doing exercises tonight, people, okay? There's a little bit, well, actually it's a big bit, but there's a bit at the beginning where they talk about OCD and what it is. And I think it's worth talking about it so we can actually understand fully what these things are. So let's go, shall we? Chapter 1. What is obsessive compulsive disorder? In this chapter, we'll cover the main features, why it is normal to have intrusive thoughts, and how it is unhelpful to try to control them, why obsessive compulsive disorder becomes a problem, and an introduction to the cognitive behavioural understanding of obsessive compulsive disorder. And let's begin, shall we? Have you ever gone back to check that the gas is off, or thought that something is invisibly dirty on turning and taking extra care to clean it, or even throwing it away? Oh yes. If you remember the video where I talk about my Strasbourg and wasps, and I was ambushed by a wasp, I think it was in the video, there'd be a thumbnail. I spoke about how I often, when I go out, I often return home to make sure I've locked things up. I've done this so many times. Well, I've been out of this force, said, you haven't locked your front door, Jim. So I go back, look at the front door, and lo and behold, it's locked. I do this all the time. I've done this on holidays, I've done this with work. You know, I do this all the time. Saying that, leaving the gas on, or thinking you have, is something I've done in the past as well. Back to the book. Do you feel uncomfortable if your things aren't arranged in a very particular way? Sometimes, yes. People I know, like old friends and family, will tell you stories and little anecdotes about how I had to have things just right. It's like in the car, the volume has to be on an even volume, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. If I see someone else, I might say, someone else, you're in the car with me, you do the volume. They leave it on 13 or 11 or something, I'm going to touch that dial or button, whichever it is in your car, and I'm pushing it up to the next even number. Do I need to do it? No. But will it drive me mad knowing it's not on an odd number? Yes. Yes, it will. Have you ever had a thought that you might do something terrible and out of character? Yes, I have. One of my fears is that one day I'll just snap like that. That was a proper... Okay, I can't really clip my fingers, but you get the idea. You know, in an instant, my mind will just flip and I'll become a horrible person. You know, I'll just attack a random person for no reason, or I'll do something horrible to someone. It's really scary at times. Because it's not me, but sometimes the thought that I might do this horrible thing for no reason would just pops into my head. It's like my brain says, why have you done this horrible thing? I'm like, brain, don't tell me this. I don't want to think about this. Yeah, but just think about it, my brain will say. I say, no. And I have to often distract myself. Thinking about it, I'm beginning to understand now why I wear headphones a lot. And why I'm one of those people that always needs background noise. And where was I? Have you had a thought or mental picture about something you think about you never should think about? Yes. Yes, I do. Ever noticed what seemed like an impulse to do something you don't really want to? Or had a bad thought that you need to cancel out in some way? Yeah, I get these. These are all intrusive thoughts, meaning thoughts which pop into your head and interrupt what you are already thinking. They intrude. Yeah, it's a good word for it. If they intrude so often, so strongly that they severely interfere with what you want to do, then you can be said to be suffering from obsessions and compulsions as a disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder. Well, I'm lucky because all the bad thoughts I've had have been just that. It's just my brain tormenting me in a way. I mean, there's not much else I can really say about it. So in ways I am very lucky because I know what I suffer from is nothing compared to what some people go through. Now back to it. OCD has been increasingly mentioned in the media over the last few years, but not always correctly. This is very true. Many people have heard about the most common forms of the problem affecting those who compulsively wash their hands or check things repeatedly, although there are many other types. I do sometimes wash my hands a lot. Sometimes I'll just be sitting there watching TV or doing something on my laptop and I just get this urge to wash my hands. It's really strange. Still. However, precisely what drives people to get stuck in these patterns of thinking and behaving is not usually talked about, leading to a misunderstanding of what the problem is. As a result, OCD can be offered as an explanation for almost anything which is repeated, from preferences for routine and order to the experience of everyday worries or the motivation behind almost any quirky behaviour which a person does more than once. See, you can use my hand washing with this. Sometimes I just get the urge because it just feels like my hands are horrible and dirty and sweaty. So I just have to go and wash them. I can't admit. And you know how it is when your hands are dirty. You don't want to get the dirt on other things. And then you think, I'll get it on my mouse, I'll get it on the remote control, I'll get it on my cutlery, and before you know where you are, all these germs are living inside of me and eating me up from the inside. Back to it. As a result, OCD can be offered as an explanation for almost anything which is repeated, from preferences for routine and order to the experience of everyday worries, or the motivation behind almost any quirky behaviour which a person does more than once. Using everyday terminology, people with a strong interest are described as being obsessed with it. People who are very focused are sometimes referred to as being obsessive. Being strongly interested in something or being perfectionistic and persistent about something important to you can be helpful in the right circumstances, and may be enjoyable. These things happen by will and choice. However, truly obsessional behaviour is very different in that it is driven by personally unpleasant ideas, linked to uncomfortable or even unbearable feeling of anxiety, stands apart from other kinds of obsessions and compulsions in being neither helpful nor enjoyable. Now these are thoughts I've always had plaguing me. Up here. I think my brain has got this problem. It can't differentiate between the prey and the accomplice. See, I should be an accomplice to my brain. See, as it does other things, which would be the prey. But it doesn't. My brain sees me, doesn't see me as itself, so it sees me as a prey, so it kind of torments me, I think. I just made up on this. I'll be honest with you. It's based on a quote I heard last week. Sounding kind of cool, but thinking about it, probably isn't really. Because most predators can actually differentiate between, the prey and an accomplice. Still. Where was I? Sorry about this, people. I'm getting lost there. Let's have a look. Where are we? Okay. However, truly obsessional behaviour is very different. That is driven by personally unpleasant ideas linked to uncomfortable or even unbearable feeling of anxiety. That is very true. And stands apart from other kinds of obsessions and compulsions in being neither helpful nor enjoyable. A person suffering from OCD does not feel that they have any choice about what is happening to them. Where we all show that processes which drive OCD are all understandable as exaggerated versions of normal psychological experiences, ones which take hold and develop into OCD in certain people. Now this is the thing, see, for pretty much my entire life, even now, I feel powerless with this. It's just something I've always accepted. I've always accepted I was like this, and it was just me. But no more. No more. Well, I'll be a prisoner to my own thoughts. From this year, as I said back in February, this is why I turn it all around. Sometimes when seen from outside, the problem of OCD can seem extreme, bizarre, and so far from normality as to appear mad. This is of course one of the factors which stops people seeing the disorder for what it is, and getting the right knowledge to fight the problem effectively. Unfortunately, this can also have the effect of cutting them off from seeking help, because they feel ashamed, scared, or frightened of what will happen if they tell others. This is very true. If you have OCD, you may think of the problem as one of the mad, bad, or dangerous to know. All ideas that can fill you with some combination of shame, terror, and misery. OCD is none of these things. And understand how OCD works is an intrinsic part of moving through treatment and beating the problem so you can reclaim your life. Another factor which can interfere with how a person deals with OCD is when the problem becomes so completely consuming that the person loses their perspective. In this case, all you can think about is how to make sure that the things you fear do not happen. You become so taken up with what you are trying to do by washing, checking, and other rituals that you are unable to see that your problem is fear of the thing which you are focused on, rather than the thing itself. Now, to go back to the previous moment, shame. This is something I've often had. So I often thought about going to doctors, but there's always been this fear that the doctor will just, listen to me talk and do one or two little tests and say, nope, you're just an idiot. Just an inadequate human being. A failure, if you will. Now you need to get out of my office because you've made me incredibly angry because you've now made it harder for other people who generally need help to get it. Is that a stupid scenario I put in my head? Yes. Will it happen? Of course not. But do I think it will? At the same time, yes. It's a genuine fear. Back to it though. So when people have OCD, the three most obvious elements of the way they experience it are: number 1, obsessional thoughts, impulses, images, and doubts. 2, compulsions, both in terms of what people try to do and what they try to think. 3, the impairment, distress, and difficulty that they cause. Now, these are all things that I know and I don't know at the same time. And I'll realise how it sounds and I'm going to move because my back is starting to hurt leaning against that wall. So I'm going to sit here now. Right. Obsessions. Let's talk about obsessions, shall we? Obsessions, also known as intrusive thoughts, are unwanted and unacceptable thoughts that seem to appear in your mind in an unbidden way. Obsessions can be thoughts in words, but can also be images, urges, as if one wants to do something, or feelings of doubt. We will refer to them as thoughts for clarity of writing from this point. Everyone has had the experience of a song coming into their head that stays around all day. That is very true. For most of the day I've been singing, "Take a look at my girlfriend, she's the only one I've got." That song by Skirt. Not a good song really. Well, it's a decent song itself, but the lyrics aren't nice. Essentially, it's about this guy that wants to ditch his girlfriend and date someone from California because he thinks he'd be happy. I'll let you in a secret though. Such thoughts and thinking will not make you happy. Happiness can be found in strange places. And hopefully that singing that song doesn't get me copyright striked. Okay. Obsessions can be thoughts in words, but can also be images, urges, as if one wants to do something, or feelings of doubt. We will refer to them as thoughts for clarity of mind from this poll. Everyone has had the experience of a song coming into their head that stays around all day. Walking down the street, many people experience nonsense phrases or perhaps swear words popping into their head. Unlike other thoughts that pass through our minds, obsessive thoughts are experienced as any or all of repugnant, senseless, unacceptable. They are always difficult to dismiss or ignore. Sexual thoughts, therefore, seem to stand out from other sorts of thoughts because they are alien to the way we see ourselves. That is, they don't fit with who we think we are. Often people with OCD fear that they might reveal some terrible truth about themselves. Now I'm going to let you in a secret here, people. That is very true. That is very me. Fear has played a massive part in my life. Thinking about it, it may have played the biggest part. Obsessional thoughts, therefore, seem to stand out from other sorts of thoughts because they are alien to the way we see ourselves. That is, they don't fit with who we think we are. But often people with OCD fear that it might reveal some terrible truth about themselves, and yes, I just realised I read that bit. It would be impossible to list all the positive and intrusive thoughts people could have, as there are so many and varied. However, here are some common intrusive thoughts, images and notes that we will revisit throughout the book. Now I'll show you, he's got some bullet points. Let's read them. Sorry about this, people. It's hard to get comfy when doing this. Thoughts. There might be blood in my food. Never thought about that. That is contaminated with germs. That is often thoughts I've had. My appointment's on Friday the 13th. Don't call down an unlucky day for no reason. Perhaps I'm a rapist. Perhaps I'm... I mean, technically, we're all capable of great evil things. I mean, the brain we know, well, hopefully everybody watching this video knows right from wrong. I don't think we can get past that. However, each person, no matter how good they are technically have the potential to do great evil. Now, this goes back to the thought bit I was on about earlier, where I thought, well, my brain just snaps and I become a horrible person. Now, ironically, the idea of being well, I'm not going to say the word again because YouTube algorithms, but you know, the bad R word. So I remember when I was with my first girlfriend and we were on holiday in Paris. We were being fairly intimate at this point. I won't go any further in details, but she said one day during this trip, she said to me, I don't want to make love with you, I'll just do it to make you happy. And that just flipped my brain like that. Because at that point I thought, wait, she doesn't want to do this, and I am the bad R word. And we had a bit of an argument about it because I was like, what the hell do you mean you don't want to? And in the end I said, you know what? That's up to you. You want to... If that's your reason for being with me, then that's up to you as long as you're happy. She wasn't happy. I'm thinking about it, neither was I. Our relationship wasn't really the same after that. Back to it. Doubts. Have I left the front door open? Now I mentioned this one already. I do this every time I go outside. I've often been out and I've driven home for about 10 minutes just to make sure I lock the door. Actually, I'll tell you a little story. This goes back about 20 years. And my parents were away for the weekend, and I was home alone, and I went to see my friend in Brighton. It was like a weekend sleepover thing. There was loads of us there. Well, there's about 4 of us, me and my mates, having great fun. I left early Saturday morning, got there as soon as I could. Fun was to be had. But about 11 p.m. that night, this little voice inside me said, "Did you lock the front door?" And I drove all the way home from Brighton across county lines to make sure I locked the front door. Ironically, while I was inside checking that every other door was locked, because it turned out the front door was locked, I left my car headlights on. Yep. And I got a knock on the door from the police saying, "Do you know your headlights on?" I said, "Yes." I didn't mean to leave them on, but I did. I was so paranoid about not locking front doors. I didn't tell them the truth. I just said, "Oh no, I'm leaving on because I don't want to forget to put them on when I get back in the car." I can't remember how it looked at me, but I'm pretty certain it was the "Are you an idiot" look, or "How are you still alive" look. Thinking about it, I was quite lucky my battery didn't die from that, because it was an old car. I think it was a Renault 5, I think. Or was it the Rover Metro? Was it a Rover that we had? I can't remember. No, it doesn't matter. The car does not matter. The point is, I done that. Doubts. Did I run someone over without realising it? Now, this is one I've never had. I was once paranoid about running over a seagull, because I remember driving and I thought, just go slow, because you see it was right in front of you. And I thought, I haven't hit the damn thing, have I? I mean, I didn't feel it, but I felt it, and suddenly you saw it fly, so I didn't. So that was good. Images. Mum dead in a car crash. Okay, that image is now in my head. Thanks, book. Another image, abusing a baby or child. Thanks, book. I really didn't want to deal with that image. I do now. Urges. Let's read on before my brain does do one. Urges. I must touch that or I won't feel right. Let me talk. When I go jogging, there's this one road I jog down, and there's a lamppost, and as I'm running, I always have to reach my left hand. It's like the road goes straight and then it only takes a bit of a right on the pavement. This is just a pavement. The road is totally straight, but the pavement, it goes like this and suddenly it takes a right, because there's like a big grass verge and trees and stuff. And as I'm going down, my right hand will instantly just grab the lamppost, almost like I'm doing a flyby on it or something. I don't know why, but I do it every time. Urges. Wait, I've read that. 2. Urge to jump in front of a train. Never had that urge. Very grateful. Very grateful I've never had that urge. Another urge to physically assault someone. I've never really had that urge. I mean, there've been 1 or 2 people in my life who have annoyed me to the point where I thought I would probably like to cause them, but I've never really had the image of myself causing physical harm to them. In a way, if that makes sense. So I'm quite lucky in that regard, because I don't suffer from those last 2. Looking at the list above, if you're someone who knows or thinks that they have OCD, may have spotted a thought similar to one that particularly bothers you. There are probably others in the list that don't bother you. But will certainly be troublesome to someone else. Surprising as it may seem, there are people who may have had any one of the thoughts listed above, but I'm not particularly worried by them, and certainly do not have OCD. In fact, everyone has thoughts such as these. Often people are surprised to find that everyone has all sorts of intrusive thoughts, including the nasty ones. Thoughts of harm coming to people, images of violence, urges to check things, doubts about whether they have done something, or impulses to do something. Now remember, people, okay, such things are normal, as the book is saying. So if you recognise any of these symptoms, okay, or you listen to me and you're thinking, I kind of relate to that. Just remember, okay, you're not alone. Okay? You are not alone. There's a research note here. In the 1970s, when cognitive understanding of OCD was being developed, two experts in OCD thought it was important to know whether normal people had intrusive thoughts, and whether they were different in content from those that troubled people with OCD. They asked people with and without OCD to write down their intrusive thoughts, and they mixed up the list. Then they asked professionals with experience in working with OCD to say which had come from people with OCD and which had not. They were not able to tell the difference between normal intrusive thoughts and obsessional intrusive thoughts. Normal intrusive thoughts included impulse to hurt or harm someone, I jump on the rails when the train approaches, I feel really angry about what he did last year, image of daughter dying in a terrorist attack, thoughts of acts of violence during sex, what if I have cancer? I get that one a lot actually, the cancer one. Thinking about it, I'm probably a hypochondriac. Urge to smash up possessions. No, I get the opposite. I get the urge to protect them no matter what. I am contaminated with asbestos. Not yet. Impulse to finally attack and kill a dog. Never had that. Dogs are amazing. Dogs are brilliant. I would never hurt a dog. Intentionally anyway. I'll never intentionally hurt a dog. And this kind of came mid-sentence, so I'm gonna go back. A few lines if you will. Often people are surprised to find that everyone has all sorts of intrusive thoughts, including the nasty ones. Thoughts of harm coming to people, images of violence, urges to check things, doubts about whether they have done something, or impulses to do something they consider terrible. For most people, the thoughts just flicker in and out of their mind without causing the levels of distress seen in OCD. The notion that intrusive thoughts are everyday occurrences was backed up by research conducted in the late 1970s and 1980s, which investigated whether there were differences between the thoughts of people with OCD and those normal intrusive thoughts. The intrusive thoughts of people who do not have OCD disclose concerned impulses to hurt and abuse others. Images of harm and thoughts that things were wrong could go wrong. The content of the thoughts that others just had very fleetingly was remarkably similar to the thoughts that troubled people with OCD. The fact that normal people experience all sorts of negative intrusive thoughts is a very important fact to remember. And that, people, is going to lead the end out, because I've been recording for about almost half an hour. And I don't really want to make it sound too long because it just gets boring. So, with that, I'd like to say I am James. And I'm pretty certain I have OCD. And there's a good chance that some of you watching too. Now, if you have watched and you think, yeah, I feel some of that too, then carry on watching the series. Heck, why not drop me a comment, say hello. Introduce yourselves. But until next time, I'm James, and you've been watching me read, or listening to me read, whichever it is. Till next time, bye.